I am legion, for we are many. I am the shadow monster. I am the unclean spirit. I grip, I convulse, I claw, I bite. I am the scraping source of terror in the night. I am that sweet song of sin in your ear. I am the Dementor's kiss. I suck you dry, then I puff you up. I throw tires on the fire of your ego. And when your hands are triumph raised, I plunge deep my poisoned pike. I am the critic. I am the vertigo of the soul. I am the needle in the arm. I am the nihilistic thought within your head. I am the loop of failure that keeps you tossing in your bed. I am the leering watcher. I am the shame maker. I am the rage stoker. I am the comment section troll. Beneath my perfect skin is slugs and worms and razor blades. I am demon. I am Baba Yaga. I am Balfagor. I am the rat king. I am the lord of the flies. I am pride, envy, avarice, and wrath. I am legion, for we are many. Now what have you to do with me? For churches like ours that tend to lean towards a more metaphorical rather than literal interpretation of Scripture, we tend to stumble over gospel passages like the one presented today from Mark. They make us uncomfortable. They get us squirming in our pews. To put it bluntly, we don't know what to do with demons. And Mark, more than any other gospel writer, emphasizes Jesus' miraculous power to heal and to exorcise. Of the 18 miracles recorded in Mark, 13 have to do with healing, and 4 of these are exorcisms. Jesus' rebuking of the unclean spirit in Capernaum is his very first act of his public ministry. This is foundational to who he is and his mission in the world. And so we are compelled to wrestle with what to do with demons. For our spiritual ancestors, the possibility of manipulating the spiritual or physical world was never questioned. There was always something else going on beneath the surface of things, including, as many believed, a quite literal battle between the forces of good and evil. Read the book of Revelation sometime for a blow-by-blow account of this. But in our days, the typical modernist approach focuses on finding rational explanations for things that appear to transgress natural laws. So things like demon possessions are demythologized and armchair diagnosed as epilepsy or some other condition. Now, I know that we here today will have a variety of viewpoints on things like angels and demons and exorcisms and great cosmic battles for the soul of the universe. Personally, I don't believe we need to literalize what we see in Scripture for it to have authority in guiding our lives. Taking Scripture seriously does not require claiming its inerrancy, but also, I don't believe we should close ourselves off to the miraculous, to the mysterious, lest our lives become flat, utilitarian, and void of spiritual adventure. And while we may have different understandings of spirit possession that we see in our gospel text today, I bet most or all of us have had the feeling of being possessed by something we wish could be exorcised. I bet most or all of us have behaviors that we struggle with. Some form of unhealthy addiction or compulsion we wish we could be free of. And it's not that we don't know what's good for us. It's just that more often than we would like, we end up listening to that siren song of temptation cooing in our ear. Like the man in Capernaum, at least sometimes, I bet we all feel like we need help, like we need assistance from an energy, a strength, a wisdom that is greater than our own. Our gospel text today compels us to take seriously our mental health and our spiritual health and see how these different dimensions to ourselves are interwoven and how faith and the spiritual adventure that comes with following Jesus can be foundational for the wholeness and healing that we seek. Now, these days, we might not use phrases like unclean spirit to describe that which must be exorcised, but in the language of the Bible, words like unclean and impure simply mean that which is contrary to the sacred. So it is those forces contrary to the sacred that Jesus speaks and acts in opposition to. Mark's message is clear. Jesus comes into people's lives as a healing liberator in direct opposition to the death-dealing forces of chaos and ruin. And it is these forces that immediately recognize him for who he is, well before any of his followers do. "What have you to do with us, Jesus of Nazareth?" says the demonic one. "Have you come to destroy us? I know who you are, the Holy One of God." Jesus' reply, which in Greek is the word phimo, is often translated in English as "be silent." But some scholars don't feel this is strong enough. Rather, the term would be better rendered as "be muzzled." Muzzled like a rabid dog, able to bark but not bite. It growls, but it cannot infect. It makes noise, but is kept in its place. "Be muzzled and come out of him," Jesus commands, as one with authority. It is important to notice here that Jesus speaks directly to the demon. He recognizes that while the possession is part of the person's reality, it is not the person himself. We are not our demons. We are not our addictions or unhealthy compulsions. We are not those forces contrary to the sacred. We are beloved children of the living God, worthy of wholeness. And Jesus can see that. One of our wise ones in the Wednesday Bible study said something this week that has stuck with me. Jesus is the one who sees people for their possibilities, not their demons. Jesus sees us for our possibility, not our demons. And as with those disciples so long ago, when we follow him, his word has power. His word has authority in our lives. Thankfully, taboos around mental health are lifting, and more people are feeling comfortable talking about their struggles. This is a very good thing, as is medical research into diagnosable conditions in which medicine is an entirely appropriate form of treatment and is giving renewed life to so many. And yet, in this time when we as a society are en masse moving away from the miraculous, there are also implications to our mental and spiritual health when life becomes flat, utilitarian, void of all mystery. We must be wary of the medicalization of the human experience and those instances when it is really the culture that is sick, not the person. Think about how loneliness and isolation and stress and feelings of meaninglessness are so often the triggers for addiction and other unhealthy compulsions. There was a famous study done in the 1980s where scientists would put a rat in a cage alone with 2 water bottles. One of the bottles was just water, and the other was laced with heroin or cocaine. Almost every time they ran the experiment, the rat became obsessed with the drugged water and kept coming back for more and more until finally it died. But another scientist, Bruce Alexander, a professor of psychology from Vancouver, noticed something about this experiment. The rat was put in the cage all alone. It had nothing to do but take the drugs. What would happen, he wondered, with a different set of circumstances, a different culture, so to speak. So Professor Alexander built what he called as Rat Park. It was a lush cage where rats had colored balls to move around and tunnels to scamper down, and all the best rat food and plenty of friends to play with. The rats in Rat Park also tried both bottles, but they mostly shunned the drugged water, consuming less than a quarter of the drugs than those of the isolated rat experiment. While all the rats who were alone became heavily addicted, none of the rats in the community of Rat Park did. and none of them died. Of course, people are not rats, and our reality is much more complicated, and it is a tragic truth that despite the best efforts of loving families, sometimes people with ample access to supports fall into addiction and other serious mental health struggles. But on aggregate, modern science recognizes that social determinants, including access to supportive community, have a profound impact on our mental and physical health. Professor Peter Cohen argues that human beings have a deep need to bond and form connections. It is how we get our satisfaction, and if we can't connect with each other, we will connect with something else. Drugs, or drink, or food, or porn. A heroin addict has bonded with heroin because they couldn't bond fully with anything else. As another of our wise ones in Bible study this week said, the opposite of addiction is not sobriety, it is connection. The opposite of addiction is connection. And so when we talk about individual recovery, we also need to talk about social recovery. How we can all recover together from the societal sicknesses of loneliness and isolation and stress and feelings of meaninglessness that have taken hold, that have possessed so many. What have you to do with us, Jesus of Nazareth? Be silent, he says, and come out of him. Jesus sees people for their possibilities, not their demons, and his word has power. His word has power in our lives. As followers, Jesus calls us into relationship, into a spiritual adventure, and he sends us out into the world to spread his message of hope and healing. But as with his followers so long ago, he does not send us alone. He sends us together, and he promises even through the centuries that wherever 2 or 3 are gathered in my name, I am there with you. I am there with you. His church is one of the few places left in society where you can actually build relationships with people that don't have some sort of transactional or financial function. It is one of the few places that still brings people together from various ages and abilities, genders, ethnic backgrounds, political views, socioeconomic circumstance, to make a beautiful, growing garden of humanity, not some monoculture of Instagrammed idealism. The church is one of the few places where we can still tap into an energy and a wisdom and a strength of deeply held traditions, rather than being reliant on corporate algorithms and soulless AI chatbots for answers. And the Church of Jesus is one of the few places that really takes seriously the link between mental and spiritual health, that recognizes that we are not our addictions or compulsions. We are beloved children of the living God, and we are worthy of wholeness. None of us are perfect, and at times we all do things that are contrary to the sacred. But here in this community, in this church that seeks to share hope and healing, love and support, we follow the one. We are bonded to the one who sees our possibilities, not our demons. Jesus sees our possibilities, and his word has power in our lives. So what have you to do with us, Jesus of Nazareth? Everything, it turns out. Absolutely everything.